Alright bros, this one's been a long time coming. I've been meaning to make this video ever since I finished watching the show in early 2024 and have been writing and rewriting the script for this video essay since then, and was never really happy with what I came up with. There was a lot of essay edits, complete removal of certain things I thought I wanted to say, and a lot of starting from scratch with certain ideas and so on. So let's finally dive into the wild roller coaster that is Baek Hyun and Hong Hae-in from Queen of Tears. Think your love life is complicated? Wait till you hear about these two. Spoiler alert, their relationship makes a soap opera look like a walk in the park. Hyun starts off as the head of legal at Queen's Group, a dude who climbed up the ladder from humble beginnings in Youngdeori to the big leagues. He's got that classic underdog vibe, marrying into the chaebol family by wedding Hong Hae-in, the arrogant queen of Queen's department store. But don't let the fairy tale setup fool you. Their marriage is rockier than my mental health during finals week. After 3 years of marital bliss, or lack thereof, Hyun was ready to call it quits. He's got the divorce papers all set, probably thinking about how sweet single life might be. But then, plot twist. Hae-in drops the bomb that she's got a terminal illness. Suddenly, Hyun-woo's plans are thrown into chaos, much like my New Year's resolutions by February. Hae-in isn't just any heiress. She's the third generation chaebol of Queen's Group, known for her icy demeanor and business prowess. She's the kind of boss who'd make you double check your work emails for typos at 3 a.m. But beneath that frosty exterior lies a woman dealing with her own set of issues, including a traumatic miscarriage that drove a wedge between her and Hyun-woo. When she gets diagnosed with a brain tumor, it forces her to re-evaluate her life choices, her strained family relationships, and, of course, her marriage. It's like when you've realized you've been using your instead of your whole life. Time to reassess everything. As if things weren't messy enough, enter Yoon Eun-sung, the secret son of the grandfather's girlfriend, who has his eyes set on taking over Queen's Group and, creepily enough, Hae-in. This guy's obsession with Hae-in adds a whole new layer of drama, making your ex's late-night drunk texts look like child's play. Eun-sung's manipulations lead to Hae-in losing her memory after undergoing experimental surgery to treat her tumor. She forgets Hyun-woo, their love story, and even the fact that pineapple on pizza is a crime against humanity. Hyun-woo, ever the devoted husband, sticks around hoping to jog her memory and rekindle their love. In the final episodes, things escalate faster than my anxiety during a group project. Eun-sung kidnaps Hae-in, planning to live out some twisted fantasy of being her husband. Hyun-woo, despite nursing injuries that would make a UFC fighter wince, rushes to her rescue. In a tense standoff, Eun-sung shoots at Hae-in, but Hyun-woo takes the bullet because cavalry isn't dead, and neither, apparently, is his pain tolerance. Eun-sung gets his comeuppance courtesy of the police, and Hyun-woo survives, proving that love and plot armor can conquer all. Post-trauma, Hae-in starts to regain her memories, and the couple decides to give their marriage another shot. They even have a daughter, adding a mini-me to their roller coaster of a life. The series wraps up with an older Hyun-woo visiting Hae-in's grave, reminiscing about their decades together. It's a bittersweet ending that makes you reflect on love, life, and whether binge watching K-dramas is a suitable substitute for actual human interaction. Hyun-woo is the kind of guy you want on your team, loyal, hardworking, and always playing the long game. But here's the thing about being the dependable guy. People start expecting you to be a rock even when you're crumbling on the inside. Hyun-woo spends the first half of the series low-key suffering in a marriage that feels more like a corporate merger than a partnership. And honestly, relatable. Ever felt like you're stuck in a one-sided group project that's also your life? That's Hyun-woo, 24/7. What makes his character interesting is how much he bottles up. He doesn't explode or make a big scene. He just quietly collects grievances like they're Pokemon cards. He's got all this pent-up resentment, but instead of voicing it, he turns inward. It's like emotional hoarding, and bro, I get it. Sometimes the mental closet is too full, and instead of cleaning it, you just shut the door and hope nothing falls out. Hyun-woo's decision to draft those divorce papers isn't just about giving up on Hae-in. It's about reclaiming some kind of agency in his life. For years, he's been the guy who bends, compromises, and carries the emotional load. Drafting those papers is his way of saying, I matter too, even if it's a little late in the game. Hae-in is a walking, talking fortress. She's got layers of self-defense mechanisms, and for good reason. Being born into a chaebol family isn't all glitz and glam. It's about living under a microscope and carrying the weight of everyone's expectations. She's been groomed to value appearances and results over vulnerability, which makes her emotionally stunted. Her coldness isn't just a personality quirk, it's a survival tactic. When she shuts Hyun-woo out after their miscarriage, it's not because she doesn't care. It's because caring too much and showing it would make her feel weak, and in her world, weakness isn't an option. That's not just a bad habit, it's a full-blown life philosophy. She's the kind of person who'd rather drown than ask for a life jacket because admitting she needs one would feel like failure. And then the brain tumor diagnosis hits. Suddenly, her invincibility cloak gets ripped off and she's forced to confront the fact that she's mortal. Spoiler alert, mortality is a buzzkill. It's a turning point for her, but not immediately. At first, she tries to handle it the same way she handles everything, by pretending she's fine. But as the series progresses, we see her start to let her walls down brick by brick. It's slow and honestly painful to watch. But hey, personal growth never looks pretty. If Hyun-woo and Hae-in's marriage were a status update, it would be, it's complicated. These two are the poster children for how love alone isn't enough to sustain a relationship. They love each other, sure, but their inability to communicate turns their marriage into a slow burn dumpster fire. The relationship is all about unspoken expectations. Hae-in expects Hyun-woo to be her rock without ever asking how much weight he can carry. Hyun-woo expects Hae-in to notice his sacrifices without realizing she's too busy drowning in her own issues to see them. It's like two people trying to dance together but to completely different songs. The turning point comes when they're forced to confront the things they've been avoiding: her illness, their past trauma, and their mutual fear of vulnerability. It's only when they start being honest with each other that they begin to rebuild. And let's be real, watching them stumble through that process is both heartbreaking and weirdly liberating. It's like seeing your own relationship issues play out on screen, but with better outfits. Family dynamics play a huge role in shaping both Hyun-woo and Hae-in. For Hyun-woo, growing up in his small town gave him a strong sense of humility and resilience, but it also instilled a need to prove himself. He's constantly chasing this idea of being worthy of his job, his wife, and even his place in her family. That kind of pressure can mess with your head faster than a bad breakup. Hae-in's family, on the other hand, is a whole other level of toxic. Being part of a chaebol dynasty means she's treated more like an asset rather than a person. Her worth is tied to how well she upholds the family's image, and that kind of environment doesn't exactly encourage emotional intimacy. Her relationship with her parents is so strained that it's no wonder she struggles to connect with Hyun-woo. When your primary role models treat love like a business transaction, it's hard to know what a healthy relationship even looks like. Hae-in's brain tumor isn't just a plot device, it's a metaphor for all the emotional baggage she's been carrying around. It forces her to confront her mortality, but it also forces her to confront herself. She spent so much of her life avoiding vulnerability that she's basically a stranger to her own emotions. The tumor forces her to stop running, and while that's obviously a rough way to learn a lesson, it's also what saves her. For Hyun-woo, Hae-in's diagnosis is a wake-up call. He realizes that walking away might feel like freedom in the short term, but it won't actually solve anything. Staying and fighting for their marriage becomes his way of proving to himself and to her that he's willing to do the hard work. And honestly, that's the kind of character development that makes you want to stand up and slow clap. Let's take a second to talk about Eun-sung, the human dumpster fire who somehow makes everything worse. He's like that guy who keeps sliding into your DMs even after you've blocked him. Persistent, annoying, and a little bit scary. His obsession with Hae-in is less about love and more about control, which makes him the perfect foil to Hyun-woo. Eun-sung's manipulations force Hyun-woo and Hae-in to confront their fears and insecurities head-on. He's like the final boss in a video game, except instead of a sword, he wields emotional manipulation. And while his actions are despicable, they're also the catalyst for some of the series' most intense moments. So, thanks for that, I guess? When Hae-in loses her memory after surgery, it feels like the universe hitting a reset button. At first, it's frustrating. Like, come on, haven't these two been through enough? But then you realize it's actually a chance for them to start fresh. Without the baggage of their past, they're forced to connect on a deeper level. Hyun-woo's patience during this time is nothing short of heroic. He's basically playing emotional Jenga, trying to rebuild the relationship without toppling everything. And the fact that he sticks around even when she doesn't remember him speaks volumes about his character. It's the kind of devotion that makes you believe in love again, or at least consider texting your crush. Hyun-woo is the guy who carries more emotional baggage than I do after a night of scrolling through social media. What really hit me was the way he internalized all of his struggles. He's out there climbing the corporate ladder, navigating a marriage that feels like it's being held together with duct tape, and still showing up like he's got it all figured out. Spoiler, He doesn't. Hyun-woo reminded me of how heavy expectations can feel, especially the ones we put on ourselves. Watching him constantly try to prove he's enough as a husband, as a professional, and as a human being was painfully relatable. It's the same energy I bring to trying to convince myself that ordering takeout again is a valid life choice. Hyun-woo's silence, his reluctance to vocalize his needs or frustrations felt all too familiar. Sometimes it's easier to keep pushing forward than to admit you're struggling, but man does that take a toll. Then there's Hyun. If Hyun-woo is the guy who bottles everything up, Hyun is the one who locks her emotions in a vault and throws away the key. She's the kind of person who looks like she has it all together, but you just know there's a storm brewing beneath the surface. And honestly, who hasn't been there? Hyun's reluctance to be vulnerable hit me harder than I expected. Watching her struggle to connect with Hyun-woo wasn't just frustrating, it was heartbreaking. Vulnerability is terrifying, bro. It's like handing someone the keys to your brand new car and hoping they don't crash it. And yet, as much as Hyun's emotional walls kept her safe, they also isolated her. It was a stark reminder that self-preservation can sometimes look a lot like self-sabotage. Their relationship isn't your typical romance, and that's what makes it feel so fresh. It's full of moments where you just want to shake them both and yell, "Use your words!" But that's the thing about love. It's not always rational. It's not always tidy. Sometimes it's just two people trying and failing almost every step of the way to figure it out as they go. Watching Hyun-woo and Hyun confront their issues was both cathartic and uncomfortable. It forced me to think about my own relationships, how often I let pride or fear stop me from saying what I really feel. There were moments when their fights felt almost too real, like someone had taken my worst arguments and played them out on screen. And yeah, that was a little too close to home. One of the most heart-rending parts of the series was watching how they dealt with grief. The miscarriage, Hyun's illness, and even the looming threat of death created a constant undercurrent of loss. And yet, they kept going. They kept trying. That resilience was both inspiring and exhausting to watch. Hyun's illness in particular brought up a lot of heavy questions. What do you do when you know your time is limited? How would you rebuild a relationship when you're running out of time? Those are the kind of questions that make you think about how you're spending your own time and who you're spending it with. Bro, I'm not gonna lie, this show messed me up a little. There were nights I stayed up thinking about how much I overthink. Watching Hyun-woo and Hyun navigate their issues felt like holding up a magnifying glass to my own insecurities. Am I doing enough? Am I communicating enough? Am I enough? These are the kind of existential spirals that this show threw me into. And don't even get me started on the emotional whiplash. One minute, I'm rooting for them to work it out. The next, I'm yelling at the screen because they're both being so stubborn. It's so draining, but in the best way. It's the kind of show that makes you feel something, even if that something is just a deep-seated need to text your ex and say, "Hey, you up?" At its core, the show isn't just about Hyun-woo and Hyun. It's about all of us, our flaws, our fears, and our capacity for growth. It's about how love can be both the best and worst thing to ever happen to you. It's about how sometimes the hardest thing isn't letting go, it's holding on. This show made me realize how much of our own baggage we bring into relationships. Hyun-woo's need to prove himself, Hyun's fear of vulnerability, these aren't just character traits. They're reflections of the stuff we all deal with, whether we admit it or not. And yeah, it's a little unsettling to see your own issues played out on screen, but it's also kind of comforting. Alright bro, let's end this breakdown with a big existential question that's been rattling around my brain since finishing Queen of Tears. How do we know when to fight for love and when to let it go? No, seriously, how do you decide whether to keep throwing punches in the ring of love or just hang up the gloves and walk away? Watching Hyun-woo and Hyun slog through their marriage made me wonder, what's the line between resilience and self-destruction when it comes to relationships? Take Hyun-woo for example. My dude starts the series teetering on the edge of walking away. Can you blame him? His wife's emotional walls make the Great Wall of China look like a backyard fence, and he's been drowning in a sea of silent sacrifices for years. But then comes the twist, Hyun's diagnosis. And suddenly, all those grievances that felt monumental shrink in the shadow of mortality. This is where the drama hits us with the big guns. Love isn't always about feeling good. Sometimes it's about showing up when things get ugly, inconvenient, and downright heartbreaking. Hyun-woo sticks around not just because he feels obligated, but because he remembers the version of their love that was worth fighting for. That hit me in the chest like a bag of bricks, bro, because how often do we walk away from something before we've even tried to fix it? Here's where I had to pause and ask myself the same question. If I were in Hyunwoo's shoes, would I stay? Honestly, it's hard to say. On my best days, I'd like to think I'm the kind of guy who stick around for the people I care about. But then I remember how I ghosted my gym buddy after one too many 5 a.m. workout texts, so maybe I'm not exactly a paragon of loyalty. There's also the mental health aspect to consider. Taking on someone else's pain, especially someone you love, is a huge emotional load. Watching Hyunwoo navigate Haeun's illness, his own frustrations, and the uncertainty of their future made me realize how much of a toll caregiving can take. It's not just about love, it's about resilience, emotional stamina, and let's be real, whether you've got the bandwidth to carry both your issues and someone else's. Spoiler, I'm still trying to sort out my own, so I'm not exactly winning any awards here. Then there's the flip side. Knowing when to let go. At the start of the drama, Hyunwoo seriously considers it, and you can't really fault him. Their relationship is toxic in ways that aren't immediately visible but are still suffocating. And sometimes, walking away isn't about giving up, it's about protecting yourself. But Queen of Tears makes the argument that love, when it's real, is worth the discomfort of staying and working through the mess. Here's the thing though, not every relationship is salvageable. That's the scary part, right? You can pour your heart and soul into fixing something, and sometimes it still falls apart. Watching Hyunwoo and Haeun claw their way back to each other made me wonder how many relationships we let slip away because we're too afraid of failure to even try. Bro, let me be real. I'm no expert on love. I'm just a guy who overanalyzes K-dramas and eats too much takeout. But watching Queen of Tears made me confront some uncomfortable truths about myself. Like maybe I'm more of a flight risk in relationships than I'd like to admit. Or maybe I let my fear of vulnerability stop me from giving people the benefit of the doubt. What stuck with me the most was how much Hyunwoo and Haeun had to unlearn to make things work. They had to let go of pride, fear, and a whole lot of baggage to even start rebuilding their relationship. And that's hard, bro. It's messy and painful and requires a level of self-awareness that I'm still working on. But it's also the only way to move forward. Is love worth fighting for? Even when it's hard? Queen of Tears doesn't give us a neat answer, and honestly, that's why it works. Because life isn't neat and neither is love. Sometimes it's a battlefield, sometimes it's a soft place to land, and sometimes it's both at the same time. The real takeaway, at least for me, is that love, real love, isn't about finding someone who makes everything easy. It's about finding someone who's willing to stand in the trenches with you when things get hard. And yeah, that's scary as hell. But maybe that's the point. Maybe the best things in life are the ones that scare us a little because they force us to grow. So there you have it, bro. Love is chaotic, complicated, and definitely not for the faint of heart. But if Hyunwoo and Haeun taught me anything, it's that sometimes the chaos is what makes it worth it. And hey, if they can survive a brain tumor, corporate sabotage, and emotional baggage the size of a small country, maybe there's hope for the rest of us. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got some text to send, starting with, hey, I know it's been a while. Thanks everyone for watching this video. If you enjoyed what you saw, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more content like this. Also, be sure to check out my other videos for more insight on other dramas and shows. Your support means a lot to me and it helps me grow this channel. If you have any thoughts, questions, or suggestions for future videos, please drop them in the comments down below. Again, thank you for watching this video and I'll see you next time.